She ordered him to kneel so the human taught her what real power feels like. The warning klaxons screamed through the cockpit as Captain Marcus Kane fought to keep his cargo freighter from becoming space debris. Sparks cascaded from shattered control panels while the alien world of Viridian Prime grew larger in his viewport, its twin suns casting an ethereal purple glow across crystalline mountains. "Come on, old girl," Marcus muttered, his calloused hands dancing across emergency controls. "Don't give up on me now." The ship bucked like an angry bronco as it hit the atmosphere, its hull groaning under stress it was never designed to handle. Marcus had been running cargo between the outer colonies for 15 years, but he'd never seen a solar storm tear through hyperspace like that. One minute he was cruising toward his next delivery, the next his navigation systems were fried. He was dropping out of hyperspace into an unknown system. The ground rushed up to meet him with unforgiving speed. Marcus braced for impact, his last thought being of his sister back on Earth, who'd always worried about his dangerous profession. The ship plowed through a forest of silver trees, their metal-like bark screaming against the hull before coming to rest in a crater of its own. Making consciousness returned slowly, accompanied by the acrid smell of burning electronics and something floral he couldn't identify. Marcus pushed himself up from his pilot's seat, wincing as his ribs protested. Blood trickled from a cut above his left eye, but he was alive. Ow! More than he'd expected. The emergency hatch hissed open, revealing a world unlike anything in the colonial databases. The sky shimmered with colors that had no names in any human language, while strange bird-like creatures with gossamer wings circled overhead. The air itself seemed to hum with energy, making the hair on his arms stand on end. Marcus had barely taken 3 steps from his wrecked ship. When they appeared, 6 figures emerged from the metallic forest, moving with a fluid grace that spoke of predators rather than peaceful inhabitants. They stood nearly 7 feet tall, their skin a deep blue-green that shifted like oil on water. Elaborate armor covered their torsos, crafted from what looked like living crystal that pulsed with inner light. But it was their leader who commanded his attention. She moved like liquid starlight. Her armor more ornate than the others, decorated with flowing scripts that seemed to write themselves across its surface. Her face was angular yet beautiful, with large amber eyes that held intelligence and authority in equal measure. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of command. "Alien creature," she said in accented but clear English, her translation device apparently working perfectly. "You have violated the sacred borders of Viridian Prime, by law of the Kyrithi Empire. You will kneel and submit to interrogation." Marcus straightened to his full 6-foot height, meeting her gaze directly. Round him, the other warriors shifted nervously, their hands moving to weapons that crackled with energy. But Marcus had grown up in the rough mining colonies, where showing weakness meant becoming prey. "Ma'am," he said politely but firmly, "I appreciate the welcome committee. But where I come from, we don't kneel to anyone. Name's Marcus Kane, and I'm just a pilot who had some bad luck with a solar storm." The alien woman's amber eyes widened slightly, as if she'd never heard such words before. Her warriors exchanged glances, clearly uncertain how to respond to this unprecedented breach of protocol. In their experience, all species either knelt immediately or were forced to their knees. "You dare refuse?" she asked, taking a step closer. "I am Princess Xena Vorthok, heir to the Crystal Throne, commander of the 7th Fleet. When I command, the stars themselves bend to my will." Marcus couldn't help but smile, despite the dire circumstances. "Well, Princess, I'm honored to meet you, but I'm just a stubborn human, and we've got this peculiar habit of standing on our own 2 feet. Though I'd be happy to discuss this over coffee if you've got any. The tension in the air could have been cut with a knife." Several warriors raised their weapons, waiting for their princess's command. But Xena held up a hand, studying this strange creature who showed no fear, no submission, only a maddening confidence that both infuriated and intrigued her. "Fascinating," she murmured, circling him like a predator studying prey. "Your species files indicated humans were weak, icily dominated. Yet you stand before me as if we were equals. Maybe, Marcus said carefully, your files need updating. For the first time in centuries, Princess Zena Vorthok found herself genuinely curious about another being. This human's defiance wasn't born of stupidity or madness. There was intelligence in his eyes, strength in his bearing, and something else she couldn't quite identify. Something that made her pulse quicken in ways she didn't understand. Very well, Marcus Kane, she said finally. You will come with us to the palace as my guest. As they began the journey through the crystal forest, neither Marcus nor Xena realized they had just taken the first steps toward changing to civilizations forever. The Kyrithi Palace rose from Viridian Prime's surface like a frozen waterfall of light and crystal, its spires reaching toward the purple sky in impossible spirals that defied human understanding of architecture. Marcus walked between his escorts, trying not to gawk like a tourist as they passed through gates that sang with harmonic frequencies. Impressive real estate, he commented to Princess Xena, who glided beside him with fluid grace. Your decorator has excellent taste in impossible geometry. Xena's amber eyes flickered with what might have been amusement. The palace grows itself according to the harmony of our people's thoughts. It reflects our unity and order, Marcus mused. Wonder what a human building would look like if it did that. It's probably a lot of coffee shops and pizza places. They entered through massive doors that recognized Xena's presence and dilated like living irises. The interior took Marcus's breath away despite his determination to appear unimpressed. Corridors stretched in all directions, their walls alive with slowly shifting patterns of light. Kyrithi nobles in flowing robes paused their conversations to stare at the unprecedented sight of an alien walking freely, rather than crawling on his belly. Your Highness, a tall, elderly Kyrithi approached, his robes more elaborate than the others. Surely this creature should be properly restrained. Hi, Counselor Vex, Xena replied smoothly. Our guest is remarkably well behaved for an unbroken savage. I see no need for chains. Yet. Exactly was savage, focusing instead on the technology around him. His engineer's eye caught details others might miss. The lighting system was failing in several sections, throwing off the harmony Xena had mentioned. Their power distribution was inefficient, causing fluctuations that would eventually cascade into system failures. They arrived at a circular chamber where Emperor Draxon waited on a throne that seemed carved from a single, massive gemstone. The Emperor was imposing, even by Kyrithi standards, his presence filling the room like gravity itself. When he spoke, the very air seemed to vibrate with authority. So, Draxon's voice rumbled, this is the creature that refuses to kneel. Met the Emperor's gaze steadily, Your Majesty. Thank you for the hospitality. Though I have to say, your palace has some serious electrical issues brewing. Give it a few months and you'll have cascading power failures throughout the lower levels. Throne room fell silent. Nobles exchanged shocked glances at this casual criticism of their perfect palace. But Emperor Draxon leaned forward, intrigued despite himself. Explain, he commanded. Marcus gestured toward the walls. Your harmonic lighting system is beautiful, but it's overloading your primary power grid. See how the patterns stutter in the northwestern quadrant? Yes. That's feedback from an overtaxed transformer. Human engineering principle, elegance is useless if it doesn't work. Counselor Vex sputtered with indignation. This creature dares critique our architecture? Our technology has stood for millennia, and it'll fall in a few months if nobody fixes it, Marcus replied matter-of-factly. But hey, what do I know? I'm just a cargo pilot. Princess Xena studied him with growing fascination. No being had ever addressed her father with such casual confidence. It should have been infuriating, yet she found herself hanging on his every word. There was something magnetic about his complete lack of fear or false deference. Show me, Emperor, Draxon said suddenly, surprising everyone, including himself. The next hour was unlike anything the Kyrithi court had ever witnessed. Marcus crawled through access panels, traced power conduits, and diagnosed problems with equipment that had functioned flawlessly for centuries. His explanations were clear, his solutions elegant, and his results immediate. When he rerouted power flowed through a secondary grid, The entire northwest section blazed with renewed harmony. "Remarkable," the Emperor murmured. "Your species achieves, through crude force, what we accomplish through harmony." "Sometimes crude force is exactly what you need," Marcus replied, wiping grease from his hands. "Sometimes harmony needs a good kick in the pants to get moving again." Princess Xena found herself watching his hands as he worked, noting their strength and precision. When he smiled at successfully restoring a failing light matrix, something warm and unfamiliar stirred in her chest. She'd commanded fleets and conquered systems, but this simple human mechanic made her feel ... different. "You will remain in the palace," Emperor Draxon declared. "Your knowledge may prove useful." "As long as I'm not expected to kneel," Marcus said with that maddening confidence. "We shall see." The Emperor replied, "Sryptically," as guards escorted Marcus to luxurious quarters that were definitely more prison than guest room. Princess Xena watched him go with amber eyes full of questions she'd never thought to ask. Human challenged everything she'd been taught about superiority and submission. He treated her as an equal, spoke to her father without groveling, and fixed their perfect technology with casual competence. That night, as Viridian Prime's twin moons rose over the Crystal Palace, Princess Xena stood on her balcony and wondered what other impossible things this strange human might teach her. In his quarters below, Marcus stared out at the alien sky and wondered if he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life, or discovered something worth staying for. 3 weeks had passed since Marcus's arrival, and the palace had never run more efficiently. His practical human engineering had solved problems that Carathi hadn't even realized they had. But it was the late-night conversations with Princess Xena that truly kept him awake under Viridian Prime's twin moons. She visited him in secret, slipping through hidden passages like liquid shadow. Tonight found them in the Harmony Gardens, where bioluminescent flowers sang in frequencies that made the air itself shimmer with music. Marcus sat on a crystalline bench, sharing stories of Earth, while Xena listened with rapt attention. "So humans choose their own mates?" she asked, her amber eyes wide with wonder. "No royal commands? No political alliances?" Marcus chuckled, absently running his fingers through the singing grass at their feet. "Well, sometimes politics gets involved, but mostly we just find someone who makes us happy. Someone who challenges us, makes us better than we were alone." It was quiet for a long moment, her blue-green skin catching starlight like scattered jewels. "I am to mate with Warlord Krasin of the Third Fleet when the seasonal conjunction arrives. It will unite 2 powerful houses and strengthen the Empire." "And what do you want?" Marcus asked gently. Want the concept seemed foreign to her. "I am a princess. I want her secondary to duty." "That's a hell of a way to live," Marcus said, then caught himself. "Sorry, I didn't mean to criticize." "No," Xena said quickly, turning to face him. "Please, continue. Your perspective is refreshing." Marcus studied her face in the moonlight, noting how her formal mask had slipped away during their conversations. Here in the garden, she wasn't the commanding princess. She was just Xena, curious and vibrant and achingly beautiful. "Where I come from," he said carefully, "we believe everyone deserves to choose their own path. Rich or poor, powerful or humble. Your happiness matters as much as anyone else's." "It's impossible," she whispered, but her voice lacked conviction. "Is it?" Marcus stood and extended his hand. "May I show you something?" Xena hesitated. Physical contact between royalty and outsiders was forbidden, but something in his warm brown eyes made her reach out and take his hand. The moment their skin touched, electricity seemed to arc between them. Not the cold energy of Carathi technology, but something warmer, more alive. Marcus led her to a small pond, where the water reflected both moons in perfect clarity. "Look," he said softly. "What do you see?" "Water. Moonlight. The harmony of natural elements," Xena replied automatically. "I see choice," Marcus said. "The water could flow anywhere, but it chooses to be still and reflect beauty. The moons could shine on anything, but tonight they choose to illuminate you." Xena's breath caught. No one had ever spoken to her like. This poetry was for court entertainers, not conversations with alien prisoners. Yet his words made something deep inside her chest flutter like a caged bird seeking freedom. "Marcus," she began, then stopped. Speaking his name felt dangerously intimate. He turned to face her fully, and suddenly they were very close. Close enough that she could see flecks of gold in his brown eyes, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from his human body. Her royal training screamed warnings, but her heart thundered with anticipation. "Zena," he said quietly, "may I touch your face?" The request was so gentle, so respectful, that she found herself nodding before conscious thought could intervene. His hand rose slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away. When his calloused fingertips traced the elegant line of her cheekbone, she gasped at the sensation. "You're beautiful," he whispered. "Not because you're a princess, not because of your power, but because of who you are when all the ceremony falls away." "I don't understand," she breathed, leaning into his touch, despite every rule she'd ever learned. "That's what makes you perfect," Marcus replied. Kissed her. The kiss was nothing like the ceremonial contacts she'd experienced with potential mates. This was fire and gentleness, passion and respect intertwined. Marcus's lips moved against hers with practiced skill, but also with reverence, as if she were precious beyond measure. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. "This is forbidden," Zena whispered, but made no move to step away.
Ow.
"Most of the best things are," Marcus replied with that infuriating human smile. They spent the rest of the night talking and touching, learning each other's stories and dreams. Marcus told her about Earth's blue skies and ocean sunsets. Zena shared her secret love of ancient poetry and her dreams of seeing worlds beyond the Empire's borders. When dawn began to paint the sky in shades of rose and gold, they both knew everything had changed. "I should go," Zena said reluctantly, but her hand remained entwined with his. "I know," Marcus replied, bringing their joined hands to his lips and pressing a soft kiss to her knuckles. "But Zena, this isn't over, not for me." As she slipped away through the secret passages, Princess Zena's heart raced with possibilities she'd never dared imagine. In his quarters, Marcus stared at the sunrise and wondered if love could really bridge the gap between worlds. Neither noticed High Counselor Vex watching from the shadows, his amber eyes burning with calculation and jealousy. The news struck the palace like a meteor impact. High Counselor Vex had witnessed the forbidden encounters between Princess Zena and the human, and his report to Emperor Draxon sent shockwaves through the crystalline halls. Within hours, the entire court buzzed with scandal and speculation. Marcus found himself dragged before the assembled nobility in chains that hummed with energy, their weight a stark reminder of his vulnerable position. Emperor Draxon sat upon his throne like a storm cloud given form, his displeasure making the very air feel heavy with threat. "Human," the Emperor's voice rumbled with barely contained fury, "you have dared corrupt my daughter with your alien concepts. The penalty for such presumption is death." Marcus met the Emperor's gaze steadily, his chains clanking as he straightened. "Your Majesty, with respect, the only thing I've corrupted is the idea that people should live without choice." The court erupted in gasps and angry mutters. Several nobles called for immediate execution, their voices rising in a chorus of outrage. But before Emperor Draxon could respond, another voice cut through the chaos like a blade through silk. "Father, stop!" Princess Zena burst into the throne room, her ceremonial armor gleaming and her amber eyes blazing with determination. The court fell silent, shocked to see their princess openly defying imperial authority.
Ow.
"Zena!" Emperor Draxon's voice carried. "Warning, return to your quarters." "This matter does not concern you. This matter concerns me more than anyone," she replied, moving to stand beside Marcus despite the guard's attempts to intercept her. "If you condemn him, you condemn me as well." Before the Emperor could respond, another figure stepped forward from the crowd of nobles. Warlord Crayson was a mountain of muscle and ambition, his armor scarred from countless battles and his eyes burning with possessive fury. When he spoke, his voice carried the menace of distant thunder. "Your Majesty, Krasen's words dripped with false respect. Perhaps we need not resort to execution. I invoke the ancient right of challenge. Combat. When he falls, the matter will be settled, and the princess will remember her proper place. The court erupted again, this time with excitement. Ritual challenges were rare and spectacular, often resulting in legendary tales told for generations. Emperor Draxon leaned back in his throne, considering the proposal with calculating eyes. The human is not Kyrithi, he said slowly. He has no standing to accept such a challenge. Then grant him temporary citizenship, Zena said quickly, her tactical mind racing ahead of the conversation. Let him prove that humans deserve respect rather than subjugation.
Marcus
looked at her with a mixture of gratitude and concern. Zena, I appreciate the support, but this Krasen fellow looks like he could bench press a starship. I'm just a cargo pilot. You're the man who taught me that strength comes in many forms, she replied softly, her hand finding his despite the shocked gasps from the court. Warlord Krasen laughed, a sound like grinding metal. Let the alien accept, Your Majesty. I promise to make his death quick, ... relatively speaking. Emperor Draxon studied the tableau before him, his defiant daughter, the strange human who had disrupted centuries of tradition, and the ambitious warlord who saw opportunity in chaos. Finally, he spoke. Very well, the challenge is accepted. Combat will take place at sunset in the Arena of Harmonies. Traditional rules apply. No weapons save those provided, victory by submission, or death. As guards escorted Marcus back to his quarters to prepare, Zena walked beside him, her presence a small comfort in the face of overwhelming odds. In private, she gripped his hands tightly, her amber eyes bright with unshed tears. She whispered, I never meant for this to happen. Hey, Marcus said gently, cupping her face in his hands. No apologies for being brave. That's one of the things I love about you. The word hung between them, spoken aloud for the first time. Love. Such a simple concept, yet it had the power to reshape worlds. Marcus, she began, but he silenced her with a soft kiss. I know the odds, he said, with his characteristic confidence. But I've got something Krasen doesn't. What's that? Marcus smiled. That maddening, wonderful human expression that had captured her heart. I've got something worth fighting for. Sunset approached. Crowds gathered in the Arena of Harmonies, a circular amphitheater carved from living crystal that amplified sound and emotion. Warlord Krasen entered first, his massive sword gleaming in the dying light, his armor making him look like a walking fortress. The crowd roared approval for their champion. Then Marcus stepped into the arena. Wearing simple clothes and carrying only his grandfather's old folding knife, he looked impossibly small against his opponent, a David facing a very alien Goliath, but in the royal box. Princess Zena leaned forward with hope blazing in her eyes. She had seen what human ingenuity could accomplish. Now the galaxy would learn that sometimes the strongest force in the universe was love willing to fight impossible. Odds. The crystal arena hummed with anticipation as two worlds prepared to collide. The Arena of Harmonies trembled with anticipation as Marcus faced Warlord Krasen across the crystalline fighting ground. The massive Karathi warrior raised his sword with practiced ease, its blade singing through the air in experimental swings that could have cleaved a human in half. Marcus, by contrast, simply stood relaxed, his grandfather's folding knife looking pathetic in comparison. This will be over quickly, alien Krasen rumbled, his voice carrying across the arena. I most regret that your death will be so easy. Funny, Marcus replied, loud enough for the crowd to hear. I was thinking the same thing. The ritual horns sounded, and Krasen charged with the force of an avalanche. His sword swept down in an arc that would have split Marcus from crown to heel, but the human was no longer there. Years of working in cramped engine spaces had taught him the value of fluid movement, and he rolled aside with liquid grace. The crowd gasped as Krasen's blade struck crystal instead of flesh, sending harmonic vibrations through the arena floor. Marcus used the moment to study his opponent, noting how the warlord favored his left side, how his armor restricted movement at the joints, how his rage made him predictable. "Stand still and die with honor," Krasin snarled, swinging again. "Sorry." Marcus replied, dancing away, "But honor's overrated. Prefer winning." Went in for the next several minutes. The arena witnessed something unprecedented. A human teaching a Kairothi warrior about patience. Marcus dodged, weaved, and rolled, never attacking, never standing still long enough for Krasin's massive sword to connect. The warlord grew increasingly frustrated, his swings becoming wider and more desperate. Princess Xena watched from the royal box with her heart in her throat, recognizing Marcus's strategy even as the crowd began to murmur with confusion. Wasn't trying to win through strength. He was demonstrating something far more dangerous to Kairothi society, the power of thinking differently. "What is the human doing?" Emperor Draxon muttered, leaning forward with grudging fascination. "He's teaching," Xena replied softly, "teaching us that there's more than one way to be strong." In the arena, Krasin's breathing had become labored, his movements increasingly clumsy as exhaustion set in. His heavy armor, designed to intimidate and protect, had become a liability against an opponent who refused to fight conventionally. Coward. Krasin gasped, raising his sword for another futile swing. "Face me like a warrior." "I am facing you," Marcus said calmly, finally opening his grandfather's knife. The blade was barely 6 inches long, worn smooth by decades of use. "But I'm facing you like a human." When Krasin charged again, Marcus did something that would be talked about for generations. Instead of dodging, he stepped forward into the attack, using the warlord's momentum against him. His small knife found the gap between armor plates at Krasin's knee, sliding deep enough to sever critical tendons without causing permanent damage. The mighty warlord crashed to the crystal floor like a falling mountain, his sword clattering away as his injured leg refused to support him. The arena fell silent except for Krasin's labored breathing and the harmonic vibrations of the disturbed crystal. Marcus stood over his fallen opponent, the tiny knife gleaming in his hand. According to tradition, he should deliver the killing blow. Instead, he folded the blade and tucked it away. "I yield the kill," he announced to the stunned crowd. Warlord Krasin fought with honor. He deserves to live and learn from this, as I have learned from him. The silence stretched until Emperor Draxon rose from his throne. The challenge is concluded. The human has proven his worth through combat. But Marcus wasn't finished. He turned to address the entire arena, his voice carrying clearly in the crystal acoustics. "People of Viridian Prime," he called out, "today you've seen something new. Not human defeating Kairothi, but different approaches working together. I won not because I was stronger, but because I was taught to think differently. Your princess taught me about honor and duty. I tried to teach her about choice and freedom. Neither of us was complete alone." He gestured toward the royal box where Princess Xena sat transfixed. "Your princess is the strongest person I've ever met, not because she commands fleets, but because she had the courage to question traditions that didn't serve her people. She deserves to choose her own path. Her own mate, her own future." The crowd began to murmur, some with anger, others with curious agreement. Marcus pressed on, his engineer's mind seeing the solution to a problem centuries in the making. What if strength didn't require submission? What if honor could coexist with choice? New ideas, instead of crushing them? Princess Xena could no longer remain silent. She stood in the royal box, her voice ringing across the arena. "The human speaks wisdom. I choose him as my mate, not because he conquered me, but because he freed me to choose." The revolution that followed was unlike any in galactic history. It began with whispered conversations in crystal corridors, spread through debates in noble courts, and ultimately transformed the Kairothi Empire from within. Emperor Draxon, seeing the wind of change, proved himself worthy of his throne by adapting rather than resisting. 6 months later, the same arena of harmonies hosted a wedding that united two species and changed the course of civilization. Princess Xena wore traditional Kairothi crystal armor woven with earth flowers, while Marcus stood proud in a suit tailored from silk that sang with harmonic frequencies, as they exchanged vows in both languages, promising to honor their differences. While building something new together, the arena resonated with a harmony deeper than crystal. It was the harmony of two hearts choosing each other, two cultures learning to dance together, and two worlds discovering that love truly was the strongest force in the universe. When Marcus kissed his bride, Princess Sena kissed him back with all the passion and joy of someone who had finally learned that the greatest power was the freedom to choose. Above them, Viridian Prime's twin moons shone down on a galaxy that would never be quite the same in the years that followed. Their love story became legend, inspiring countless others to question old assumptions and build new bridges between worlds. The human who refused to kneel had taught an empire to stand together as equals, proving that sometimes the greatest revolutions begin with a single heart brave enough to love without limits.